welcome back to my channel. It's Bella. I know I promised you guys that I would try to make some different content. Today is Sunday and it is a rainy day. We actually have a tropical storm in our midst. So what a perfect day to combine two of my favorite things, rainy days and books. So back in March, as a pre-wedding gift, Michael got me a Kindle. It is the Kindle 11th generation, the basic. I love it. Ever since I have been obsessed with reading. I am currently subscribed to Kindle Unlimited. For $11.99 a month, I can get a bunch of books for free. It's essentially like borrowing, but there's really not much of a limit unless you're like trying to borrow like 200 books, then you probably shouldn't. It sounds like my neighbors are rearranging their entire apartment right now. So yeah, that is the noise that is occurring from above. Just a quick disclaimer, if you haven't read any of the books that I'm going to discuss in today's video and you don't want any spoilers, I would suggest you skip out on this video because I will be talking in depth about each book. Let's get into it. In total, I have read 3 books in the month of July. I think my Kindle has a lot to do with that, just because essentially I can carry it everywhere I go. I leave it, I bring it in my purse everywhere I go. I think just how like the Kindle formats reading makes it so much easier to read faster. There are like these little numbers. It says 100% because I finished with this book. It'll tell you the minutes you have left in the chapter, the time that you have left in the book in total, and then the page number. And there's like a percentage of how far you've gotten in the book. It honestly challenged me to try to beat my time. Also, the great thing about the Kindle is that it doesn't have any blue light, so I can read it at night. I can read it pretty much all day without hurting my eyes. That is really good because I have really sensitive eyes and honestly should be wearing glasses, but I haven't. I also use Goodreads to track my reading and the books that I read. So if you want to follow me on Goodreads, I will link that in the description. First book on our list is a book that I actually started in April that is not anywhere near July. However, I finished it in July. It did end up being one of my favorites because it was hard to read towards like the beginning and the middle. And then as it got closer and closer to the end, I was thankful that I stuck it out because it actually was a really good story. It honestly made me feel really connected to my culture. And that is The Waves Take You Home by Maria Alejandra Barrios Velez. It reminded me so much of the importance of family, going back to where you came from. That is like something that I feel like I have just recently come to understand. And the main character is Colombiana. She's basically faced with a really hard decision in the beginning of the book. Her grandmother, whom she loves very much, she wants her granddaughter to experience more than Colombia, and so she basically tells her that she has to move, that she has to go to the United States and go to school. The main character, her name is Violeta, does not want to. She's in love with this boy and she wants to stay in her hometown and help her grandmother run the restaurant, but her grandmother is like persistent. She's like, I don't want this life for you. I want you to go. I want you to go to the United States. I want you to live a better life than we did here. Basically, grandma has a lot of trauma, a lot of baggage, and so she places it on everybody in the family. And so it's like a story about a girl who kind of breaks the generational trauma in her family. Such a beautiful story. Again, it kind of dragged. There was a lot of like parts of the story that I felt like were unnecessary. Her grandmother ends up passing away, unfortunately, just due to old age, and so she comes back to Colombia from New York, where she'd been living, going to school. She had a boyfriend, a very serious relationship. She comes back to find out that her grandmother left her a portion of the restaurant in her will. Also finds out that her grandmother was in a great amount of debt before she passed. And so the restaurant is at risk of being closed, and the bank taking it away and taking everything away. The home that she basically was raised in. It's just a beautiful entanglement of growing up and what it's like to grow up in a Hispanic family. A girl who has to fight her own insecurities in order to save her family and to break down the traumas that her family has been carrying for generations. It's truly a really beautiful story, and I would recommend it to anybody. The second book of this month was a book that kept me hooked until the end. I think quite literally this might be my favorite book of this year. Well, I also have other favorite books. It literally took me 5 whole days to read this book, and that is 800 Grapes by Laura Dave. Love this author. I've read her other book, which is called The Last Thing He Told Me. That book was a little bit more of like a mystery, but this one was a little bit more of like another just like comfy family book. It definitely made me feel really homey and like comfy, and like I wanted to cuddle up. Basically, the book starts out with this girl. Her name is Georgia Ford, and she grew up in the southern coast of California on a vineyard. Her father had this like really weird dream, and he decides to build a vineyard in the south of California. It starts off with her like away from home. She was living in Los Angeles, was about to get married. She starts out in a bridal shop with a dress. I talked about this a little bit in a previous vlog, and they were measuring her, and all of a sudden out the window she sees her fiance walking down the street with a woman and a little girl. She runs out in her dress, she calls out his name, and they all turn around in a shock. The little girl looks at the gentleman and she's like, "Dad, like what the heck is going on?" And here is his fiance in her wedding dress, shocked. He runs off and goes to her father's vineyard, and it's just a whole whirlwind of events where she's trying to save her parents' marriage, her parents' vineyard. Her dad decides to sell the vineyard, and so she's trying to save that, all the while trying to avoid the fact that her fiance has a child that he never told her about. Breakups, there's love affairs, there's fighting, a fire. It's so invigorating that it literally left me completely hooked, and that is why it took me 5 days to read it. And last but not least, the best book of this month. This book literally had me in a chokehold the entire week that I was reading it because it was just so good. That is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. It was a little bit more on the smuttier side. I mean, I don't really like that. But if you're a fan of smut, this is definitely 10 out of 10. I consider a 5-star book ones that have me like thinking about it after reading. Like after I'm done reading, if I'm still like obsessing over it, over the plot, then they're 5 stars. This is my first book that I've ever read of hers because I've been like trying to put it off and trying not to read her books because I felt like maybe she was overhyped. But then I was like really in the mood for a tearjerker, and somebody recommended this one to me. Last chapter literally made me ugly cry for the longest time. I was in bed just sobbing, and I told Michael like, don't even pay attention to me because I am a mess. The story starts out with a girl named Kenna Rowan, and she was in prison for 5 years for involuntary manslaughter. She got behind the wheel under the influence of drugs and alcohol and accidentally killed her boyfriend. And now she's out after 5 years, and her main goal is to find her daughter and be reunited with her daughter because she has not seen her daughter obviously in 5 years. She finds out that she's pregnant while she's in prison, and she gives birth and they snatch her away. The courts rule her unfit and terminate her parental rights, and the boyfriend's parents end up taking over the rights of the child, and she lives with them. She ends up stumbling into this bar. She meets this guy. She hooks up with him to find out that he is her boyfriend's best friend. The story just unravels from there. She's met with so much hate, so much like just distastefulness. Best friend literally like loathes her and then comes to get to know her, and they end up falling in love. It may seem a little unrealistic. There were parts where I was angry, there was parts where I was sad, there were parts where I was like, I'm so in love. The ending was truly just so heartwarming. When, you know, her boyfriend's parents finally come to forgive her and she meets her daughter for the first time, and everything is all well, and now she's on the road to forgiving herself. So beautiful. Like, I'm literally about to cry right now. And I will recommend this book to anybody. If you have not read any of Colleen Hoover's books, I promise you, you will not regret reading this one. And that is it for my July favorites. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do like this content and you want to see more of it, please give it a thumbs up. Put in the comments down below what is your favorite book and what recommendations you have for me. What should I add to my TBR? I am currently reading 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. This was another tearjerker that was recommended to me. After the first page, I was already ready to cry. So we know exactly how this book is gonna go. Hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video or vlog. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you're new here, welcome. I love you, and Jesus loves you more. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye. There's a hair in my mouth. Grandmother ends up dying. There's a better way to say that. I just filmed this whole thing and my camera deleted it.